Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Daily BizLink featuring Jane Cebrynski. And today we're focused on talking about how change can happen. Jane, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Happy day. So, of course, ritual and routine. Give me a 10 moment. Do we have
Well,
a 10 moment today?
I think my 10 moment of today is the fact that I'll actually be flying out to go and see my sister and my brand new baby niece. So that is a big 10 moment for me. So very excited about that one.
Because you're going to be the fun tea.
That's right.
I
So
love that.
I love that you brought up this topic because there are two groups of people. There are those individuals that believe, change can happen, and those that believe, nope, once we're one way, we have to stay that way forever. And so would love to hear your insight on, how change can actually happen.
Well, so I've been doing a lot of reading just lately about the brain and neuroplasticity, and I'm super fascinated by that. And I'm not a science-oriented person. I'm quite the opposite. But just really, capitalizing on the conversation we had a couple of weeks ago about growth mindset versus fixed mindset, and some conversations that I've had this week with a lot of people that, are struggling with the changes we're still experiencing, fear of the change that, is coming ahead, but also, a lot of people talking about how they've gained weight over COVID and, the struggles behind that. And so I just kind of wanted to really spend time today giving hope to people, to let them know that, we can change and we're never too old, in spite of the words, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's absolutely not true. And so just having the growth mindset says, okay, I believe I can grow and I can change. And that is our hope. And you first have to have hope before anything can happen. So you've got to believe it can happen. And then the super cool thing about, neuroplasticity is it shows that the brain actually can change and be rewired. So even if we've been doing something one way for a really long time, we can change that. And so that's what I think is super cool. Any thoughts on that?
The one thing that comes to mind, especially when it relates to change, because change can be really hard for people. And I think the biggest barrier for them is just getting started. How do you start rewiring your brain or your thought process? So what tips or winning strategies would you have for our listeners as far as what we can start doing to break it down so it seems a little bit more digestible to get started with the idea of creating change in our lives?
I love that too, because the first and foremost, seriously, if you just believe, if you have hope, that is huge. And then it's a matter of recognizing, like, okay, you're going to have to take some action. You're going to have to do it. You're going to have to practice. Nothing, wouldn't it be great if we walked into a gym and could lose weight just by watching everybody else working out? Like, that would be super cool, but that's not how it works. We have to actually do the work. And then if you recognize that, and I'm going to use the metaphor of the gym because we coach in sports and I think that visually people can follow it. But if you think about it in terms of, we don't get to just go to the gym and lift a couple of weights. We've got to fatigue the muscles. So we've got to go through that struggle. And that's when people want to quit. It's when it gets uncomfortable or when it gets a little bit difficult. But if you just think about it from, and the brain can be treated like a muscle, even though it's very plastic, it is like a muscle because it can be changed. So if you just merely think about it from the standpoint of, okay, I'm going to go into the gym and I'm going to lift some weights. If I quit right when the weights get hard, I haven't fatigued out that muscle enough to create the change. So I got to push through. I got to do a few more. And then recognize it's also not going to happen overnight. So you can't walk in the gym, lift some weights, even push yourself a little bit, not too much because you don't want to overdo it, but you're not going to see the change right away. So it takes time. It takes time. And so if you just go with the idea that, number one, we can change. In fact, the really cool thing, from scientists who've studied neuroplasticity say it gets better. Like, we are absolutely designed to change and to be able to develop new skills and really continue to grow. And I think that right there can be super fun. you know, and if we treat it like it can be fun, and if we just do a little bit at a time.
I think for me, the two things that really are top of mind with change is having that level of commitment and then also practicing with consistency. So we've talked previously in some other sessions about the importance of putting things on our calendar to help hold ourselves accountable. And also maybe finding that champion or that person that's going to help hold you accountable that will help push you to that next level. I think that will certainly help with getting the results that you're looking for. So Jane,
Well,
as we
oh, go ahead. We know that in order, you know, first and foremost, it's honoring what you want to change. And it's absolutely okay if you're like, no, don't want to change that. No problem. I'm talking about things when you say you want to change, you know, and you figure out that this is something that actually matters to you. But we know that you've got to have the new hope. You've got to have a new skill. So if you've been trying something and it hasn't been working, it's time to ask yourself the question like, okay, do I need to do this a little bit differently? And then that's when you've got to get the new thinking around it. And we know from studies that it's the new thinking that helps to sustain the change. So that helps reinforce the commitment and the desire to work through it. And I know we all have experiences in our life where we did change, where we were able to follow through on something. And it's just a matter of like, if it's important, and it's okay if it's not, just honor that too.
So Jane, as we wrap up today's conversation, is there any specific challenge that you would like to put out there to all of our listeners for the week?
Well, I just think, first of all, ask yourself the question, you know, is there something I want to change? And how important is it? So stat it up, right? Using our scale 1 to 10, 1 being 0, 10 being high, if it's super important to you. And then what's one small thing you could do starting right now that would help you with big change? So it's just starting small and taking one little bite at a time. And that would be my, you know, my recommendation. Just think of something small that you can begin to do today that will eventually lead to bigger change down the road. Because we need also that win. We need those little wins, that sense of accomplishment to keep us going.
All right, everyone, you heard it from Jane. Change can happen. Sounds like a great challenge for the week and looking forward to continuing our conversations. Jane, thanks again for being here today.
Thanks so much, Lindsay.